ever feel alone in the culture war, or see everything around you crumbling to ashes and dust, and you're kind of tired of it, but you feel like there's no one out there that would support you? Well, I've got 3 sites that actually might change your mind. So first we have MetaPCs. MetaPCs is a fantastic PC making company. They'll have pre-mades, they'll have all sorts of customs that you can make. You can get cases, possibly engravings and all that type of stuff. Like whatever you want, they can get it working for you. And they've got some pretty snazzy stuff. So check out MetaPCs. You can use the Geeks and Gamers code, which is 199, in order to get a percentage off of whatever you want to purchase. Check them out. Another one that's also really good is DEG Mods. DEG Mods and ayakamods, which I will show you in a second, both share a common enemy in Nexus Mods. So if you've ever tried modding a game, Nexus Mods has been more pro-censorship and not allowing you, the gamer, to pick what you want to pick, play what you want to play, and mod your game the way you want to mod your game, because they don't believe you have the right because it might be politically inconvenient for them. So both DEG Mods and ayakamods are both alternatives, and there are others, but these are the 2 main ones that I've heard about that can definitely change your view on who's out there and who's supporting what you yourself are looking for in any type of game or otherwise. Modding sites can be not safe for work, so please use your own discernment and know that you're not alone. There are other people like myself and Geeks and Gamers, Nerdrotic, and the hundreds if not thousands of other channels that are trying to do something good in the YouTube sphere against this pretty nasty counterstroke against us. So check out those 3 sites if you are interested in supporting those that support us. I make no money off of this. This is purely because I support what they do. So have a great day. Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I'm once again joined by the Ultimate Inquisitor, which is literally impossible because I am the Ultimate Inquisitor. But how you doing, Matt?
Greetings from the Victor of America, New Jersey.
Jersey. East Coast. West Coast. It's got to be from the North. America belongs to the North. Or what? Nords.
America belongs to American.
Nords. America belongs to the Nords. Sorry, Skyrim joke. Anyway, how y'all doing? How's it going? Nice to meet you. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. You can begin your thumbs down barrage, as you will. We have a bit of an update, and hopefully it won't be too terribly long, but you know us. When we say that, it usually ends up being long. Although last one was pretty good.
We strive to add to enhance the content beyond its actual advertising.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I strive to disappoint. Which I'm sure I do perfectly fine. Just see my subscriber count. But yeah, so we have some goodies. So upgrade to Les Stop. Oop, shoot, I just totally just dipped out of the thing I was trying not to dip out of. But so let me try that again because I hit the wrong button and deleted it. All right. So I've been watching this all day and it's already gone up over 150 since I sat down in front of my computer, which is really, really cool. So for those who need a refresher course, Stop Killing Games is a consumer movement started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. An increasing number of video games are sold effectively as goods with no stated expiration date, but designed to be completely unplayable as soon as support from the publisher ends. This practice is a form of planned obsolescence and is not only detrimental to customers, but makes preservation effectively impossible. Furthermore, the legality of this practice is largely untested in many countries. And basically talks about all the stuff in Europe they're trying to do. So this is the count as of currently. I think it's very undersold because personally, like I agree with you, Matt, where I don't want the government to make more laws where they just overstep their bounds. But I mean, one, they're going to do that anyway. Two, we do have laws that are supposed to protect consumers. It's just they don't apply them properly or equally or all the above, right? So, like, if you have a game, it's like, okay, I bought this game from you, and the next week they shut it down, and I lose access to that game, and assuming they don't have a 30-day return policy or whatever, like they don't have any type of return policy, you're just out of luck because you activated a CD key of some sort, and that's 60, $70, maybe even $80 out of your pocket, and then they get it scot free with your money because, well, we didn't have an end of life with our stupid game. You know, that's to me is a problem, and I feel like that should be something where, you know, if you make a game, making it so it has a built-in end of life should be just the plan to begin with for all games. Why this is considered a difficult thing, I don't understand, because like the basic end of life is like, okay, if we as the studio cut off our support from something, what do you think will happen? Well, if they cut it off and it completely shuts the whole game down because they want live service games. Well, the only logical reason they want it to be a live service game is because they could shut that down and force you to go to the next game they make, because by doing so, it forces you to pay them more money. That's the simple explanation of it.
Well, I mean, yeah. So okay, let's break this down a little bit. So ideally, the incentive for these companies to stop doing this would be we don't buy their games for companies that do this, right?
That would be ideal, but we have too many normies in the video
Well,
game
I don't think
world.
it's so much that we have too many normies. I think it's that we have so many games and so many companies producing these games, and plus, like the guy we were debating over with
Pirate software?
yeah,
Yeah.
he was speaking strictly from the perspective of his online only games, basically, from what I understand
Yeah.
of his commentary. Those type of games have a whole group of fans who don't play any other type of game.
Yeah.
So they don't really care about the other sports.
FIFA, Madden. Yeah, those guys. Sports games, like I enjoyed like NFL Blitz and NHL Hits and like all the more violent type sport games that were like highly unrealistic, but they were silly fun. And you could go on the trampoline with your friends and just like bash each other and whatnot and just have a fun time with it. But somehow there was like a cult built about these games, and through that,
it's not so much a cult. It's
I'm being facetious about it, but I mean,
it's well, I mean, I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to be like psychologically clear.
yeah,
We're all drawn to different types of events. I mean,
and that's why some of us have better taste than others.
Someone who did an online only game might have been someone in the ancient days who might have been a fan of staying out hunting all the time and never going back to the village, just dropping off the food. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean that's more of like an antisocial. Like I feel imbued with purpose when I do this thing.
That,
blah, blah, blah.
we have even though we like to think of ourselves as different from animals, right? We have one thing that's special about us that our essentially our soul, free will, whatever you want to call it.
Opposable thumbs.
You know, no, but in all other capacities, we behave almost identically to chimpanzees still. I mean, so
I don't know about you, but I don't stick my finger up my butt and then lick it.
Chimps rarely do that. That's a mistake.
Rarely does not mean they don't, good sir.
The point I'm getting at is, so in a 24-hour a day, a chimp sleeps about 8 to 10 hours. So do humans. In 24-hour a day, a chimp eats for about 5 6 hours.
You clearly, good sir, are not a parent because that doesn't happen.
You know, human kids sleep about as much as chimp kids. The point I'm getting at is we have biological drives in us, and all these different types of games appeal to one or more of them, right? So I understand when the normies don't care about woke stuff, like they'll watch a movie or whatever, or don't care about.
I'm not even saying it's like woke has nothing to do with this.
Let me finish my statement here. Like when the normies don't care about the game being turned off for 3 years because they only played it for 1 year, you know, Like there's a whole where those of us who, I mean, I probably would still play more games if my hands didn't kill me and have biological problems inhibiting me. But like those who want to play games, video games for lengthy periods of time, play old games and play games into your 70s, like you or I might want to do, um,
I don't think I'm
are
gonna live
not
that
the
long, but yeah.
majority of gamers. You know.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, it's like, if you got a person who plays Madden, they're gonna buy Madden regardless of if Madden gets, if it goes woke, if it gets this, if it's literally just the same product with a couple of names changed, and like they didn't do anything. Like Madden could literally just change out a couple like roster characters and then nothing else, and people would buy it up, and it would make lots of money.
Well,
FIFA does the same thing. They make so much money off of cosmetics or little stuff you buy in the game or whatever.
well,
It's just
they
like,
update the roster, that sort of stuff.
yeah, but that's like minuscule. Like graphically, they don't like go any higher, and sometimes it doesn't make logical sense because when they throw the ball, it, like they catch it and it just goes like right through their hand, even though their hand's like this and the ball's this big. So like physics wise, it's not possible to do exactly what they just did. So it's a bit of a weird scenario in terms of they're just buying the same thing over and over again. Like you could have played FIFA 2006 or 2007, and the current day is like not that much different. Like there's just not that much.
Again, it's weird to you or me, but not to them. So,
well, it should be weird. Like somebody should have that moment of clarity where they're just like, why do I keep buying the same game over and over again when there's not that much of a differentiation? Now, I imagine if it's sports, it's probably to do with loyalty to particular players and or teams. So like if you're playing Madden and you like Patrick Mahomes, well, you're going to play the games that Patrick Mahomes is in. And if you like Kelsey, then you're going to play the games that Kelsey's in for the Kansas City Chiefs or whatever. Like, and that's the thing. Is like I can understand that as a reason, but I would also, because I'm that hardcore and that loyal, I would have a problem with them giving me slop instead of well-made games. Like that to me would be like I'd have an outrage about it.
I don't want to dive into the Madden fandom, but the version that they blew their stack
rabid fandoms, but yeah,
the version that came out like the year or two ago,
which
it
game?
didn't sell too well. Madden.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't want to say like 22 or 20. I remember reading about it because like it was a horrifically bad iteration of the game.
I make a habit of staying away from Madden.
Yeah. Well, again,
most sports. I like Rocket League's okay, and a couple of those kind of games.
If it comes up in my feed, I'll read it, so to speak. I read everything.
I mean, mostly that comes into my feed is like what game on Steam is free this week, and then I post them in the Discord for people, and they don't look at them apparently.
Linus might have talked about it on Linus Tech Tips. I don't remember exactly what, but it came up on topics. Anyway,
yeah.
So again, I got sidetracked into sports games. The gist of the whole thing is, I don't blame normies or fandoms and whatever, because again, they don't care about these games having, and like if you told my brother who owns like 17 console systems,
I'm almost there.
He buys them all the time because he plays console games, but he never goes back and plays games from, well, with rare exception, will he go back and play a game from 10 years ago? Rare exception.
I mean, there are games that I would want to play very much consistently. Like I played so much Halo, and then when I
you and I are different.
I know, but I'm saying that I'm similar, and I don't play old games much, but I also don't play modern games on console, normally speaking. So I played the snot out of Gears 1 through 3, like hardcore, and I was in a clan. I had my own nickname and everything that I was dubbed by my team and my clan, and I'd play all the time, and it was great. It was a fun experience, everything.
Right.
But eventually people kind of slowly dropped off, and then I didn't have people to play with, and my clan kind of just disappeared, and I haven't heard from them in forever. So it's just kind of like, it's been probably 15 years since I heard from them. Yeah. And nobody, they just stopped playing in groups and stuff, and they just dissolved into nothingness. But then it gets to the point where I'm sitting there like, I'm paying a yearly subscription to play, and I just don't have games that I care to play online. So I just stopped getting an Xbox Live subscription because it wasn't really worth it. And this is way before the Game Pass came out, like a decade before the Game Pass came out. But I played Halo 3, I played Gears of War, I played Black Ops 1, 2, and 3, and then I just stopped playing Call of Duty games because they're all the same at this point, and they're not that much better. And now they're even stupider because they're just like, let me go every direction, just sliding around like it's a slip and slide everywhere, and it's stupid. And then people jump. They need to put a stamina freaking bar in Call of Duty because the jumping is ridiculous. That's not how combat works. So people doing it is stupid. They don't even do that in freaking paintball, for crying out loud.
Well, Call of Duty is not the game that's based on combat realism. Okay.
It used to be.
No, it never was. The game that was based on combat realism was Battlefield, and then they ruined it. They utterly
I'm
ruined
talking
that.
like the original Call of Duty in World War II. You got to sit in a vehicle. You moved at the speed that you could move. Like you didn't move.
But that still wasn't ultra realistic.
I mean, it's as ultra realistic as it could be back in like 2001. But yes, I agree with you. Battlefield's always been really good about that stuff.
It was until that fucking Battlefield of 2 years ago, with the purple-haired, one-haired samurai chick in World War I.
Was that the one after Battlefield 1?
Battlefield 1 and 2, I think, were really good. I remember playing them a lot.
I don't remember there being a 2. I thought
whatever. The version of the game escaped me. It was the one, however, where it took place.
One with the multi-haired, colored, prosthetic armed lady.
Instead of having an actual female hero of that war, Olga Cherienko, one of the most lethal snipers in history, they had this chick who was a cyborg with a cyber hand and a samurai sword and purple hair. And like everyone
in World War II, where coloring your hair was not done like that.
And she was taking on tanks with a samurai sword. And like people were like, we don't. It's a huge drop off in purchases of the game.
Well, yeah, it was a disgrace to gaming.
Yeah,
it's like people who played the Battlefield game were like, we came for the Battlefield game. We didn't come for your modern day politics. We didn't come here.
We didn't come here for Call. The actual comment: we didn't come here for Call of Duty. We came here for Battlefield.
Like, well, even Call of Duty wasn't that bad. That's the funny part. Is Call of Duty hasn't been that bad until only a couple of recent years.
To the diehard Battlefield fans, it was.
I'm saying in terms of comparison, in terms of like they're promoting or pushing a particular like colored hair, that wasn't a thing in Call of Duty until what? 2 Call of Duty games ago, 3 Call of Duty games ago. Like it's pretty recent in comparison to that Battlefield game. But there's games that I would play, like if I had access, I'd play Time Splitters 2 and 3 or Time Splitters Future Perfect out of the wazoo because it's made by the same guys who made 007 GoldenEye. And it's humorous, mostly adult humor, but it's funny in general. People dying and stuff is just really funny. It has a map maker. It's got freaking like event things that you can try to get like different levels of, like you have to get scores and you can get like up to a platinum trophy. And if you get the platinum trophy, like every trophy you get unlocks something. So if you get like a bronze trophy, because you did pretty bad, you unlock like a map or a character. But if you get silver, you get a map and a character. And then you get like gold, you get like 3 things. But if you get platinum, you get all the things for that thing. And it had over 200 characters to choose from. A lot of them had neutral stats. Some of them had unique stats. You could get variety versions of the same thing because they're coming from the same time period or whatever. But it had single and co-op campaign all the way in easy, medium, and hard difficulties. And as you played through each of those, you got if you played in hard on both of them, you unlocked medium and easy, all the bonuses from them too. And you had to do co-op to unlock stuff as much as single player. So it's like a legit fun game. And it's one of the best combat systems I've ever played for that style of a first-person shooter. But it had so much stuff because the map maker made it so you could make your own maps and community-based stuff. The multiplayer allowed you to go up to, I think, 16 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you could there's 16 real people if you could like connect your Xbox or your GameCube or whatever together. Or you could just play with bots. And they had actually surprisingly good bots. And you could trigger the bots to be multiple levels of difficulty. So if you want to play them all on easy or if you want to play them on as hard as you can get. And then all the different game modes for versus was really, really, really fun. And so you had maps to unlock, you had characters to unlock, there were like achievements actually meant something. And then you could brag to your friends like, haha, I have all this stuff unlocked. Like that's a game I'd play the snot out of even today. And I do have it on my emulator. but I also have like 3 copies of it. But if I could play that, I'd play that all the time. They just don't have it. And I don't want to pay a subscriber fee to play a game I already own. Especially like on PC, where I could go to, like, if I can get Time Splitters up and running on an emulator system that can connect to a network that other people can play with, I can do that for free. I don't have to pay $100 a year to play that. Like, the whole thing got stupid as soon as was it Xbox or Sony? I think it was Sony started charging for connectivity between multiplayer. And as soon as they did it, Xbox was like, "Oh, we can make money off that too." And then it just went up, down. It's like, I just want to play my games and enjoy myself. I don't want to pay you guys money to use the things I sold from you. I bought your console. I bought your game. I bought your controllers. I bought everything I need. Why do I have to pay you to actively utilize these things in an online fashion? And that's where Stop Killing Games is like, hey, this game hasn't come out since 2000, I don't know, 2005, 2006 or something like that. I think that's when Time Splitters Future Perfect came out. It was a while ago. But this game hasn't come out or hasn't been actively sold or anything. By law, it should be considered abandonware. Like, it's a software that is no longer being sold. They make no profits off of it. It's abandonware. And then that abandonware goes to public domain. And then that public domain, we kaflinka-rinkering around with it, and we make it work in an operative format, and then people play it, and then the companies can shove off. And here's the thing. It's actually good for the gaming industry as a whole, despite what Pirate Software says. And I don't know if you probably didn't watch my Friday video, but I was trying to be very, very hospitable towards him. I know I came off harsh the video before that because he didn't. He clearly didn't understand what he was talking about because he didn't understand the premise by which the whole initiative is about. But I was like, hey, let's get you and Accursed Farms Ross to sit down, have him explain the details of what the actual initiative is and what it does, and then have you explain why you think that either won't work or what you propose in place of it with, like, hey, I think this would be better for the industry as a whole. But apparently, after I released that video, I found out that he basically told Ross to eat his whole rear end. So I was like, well, I guess that there goes the hospitality and hospitable behavior and all that stuff. So that's gone. And he's just basically he's tripled, quadrupled down as a villain in every aspect he could possibly go. But in this particular regards, he thinks it's bad for developers because reasons. He didn't really give many reasons. He just said it would be bad for the industry.
Now, I got from his videos and what he was talking about. He was speaking from the perspective he develops these online only games. And that's why he thought it was bad. So,
yeah, but that's not a valid reason.
Well, from his perspective, it is.
We're up another 100. That's nice.
From his perspective, it is. I don't think it is myself, but
well, what I'm saying is like, if in his format there is no initiative to do anything, like, at all. They'll just repeat the same slop over and over and over again. But here's the thing. If there is a legal requirement for them to have an end of life for their games and have it be that unless it's a free, always online game, that game it's free, so no one's paying into it. But the cosmetics and stuff might get a little murky. But if it's a free online only game, like a game that's I don't know, some random free MMO or whatever that people can play that they don't have to pay for, right? Like, no one's ever paid for it. They don't have the same requirements as, say, somebody like Guild Wars, World of Warcraft, yada yada yada, where the requirement is people have paid for the game. It is purchase, good sirs. It is a purchase, and you can't just destroy the game because you don't feel like dealing with it anymore. That's just not how that works. Like,
and again, I agree with you. It's just
I know, and I agree with you. I don't want the government to dip their toes into it more than they have to. But they're not doing that now where they're supposed to be.
I'll give you a great example from a totally different area. So you remember that Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade about 2 years ago now, back to the states, right? And so what happened in a couple of states was their anti-abortion laws from like 1820 became the law of the state. And now I personally am mostly pro-life, but I don't like the idea of the government sticking their hands in any of this. You know,
I mean, I don't like the government protecting lives either, so it's okay.
Well, no, it's the whole idea of whatever law they make. I'll give you why. So the law that in Wisconsin, it's from like 1830 or whatever, and it was extreme by even pro-life standards.
Okay, well, that might be the case. Then just update it. Like
no, but here's the thing: because the Wisconsin Republicans didn't update it, the people rebelled and elected a liberal Supreme Court judge who threw the entire thing out.
Mm.
So now they have a majority liberal Supreme Court in Wisconsin because they went. They didn't, you know,
they did more than they were supposed to, or didn't do enough to do what they were supposed to, and so the law itself did more than. Yeah, I understand the point.
To react to these things, and government's going to do what they do, and I mean,
I think that would be an overreaction of both sides, both the lawmakers and the people, because the people who apparently wanted those laws in there to begin with, or are okay with those laws because they keep voting for those people, and then the law got quote unquote too extreme. I don't know what the law is, so I can't comment on it, and it's not really the place to do that here. But in terms of if the people like they're trying to swing the pendulum so hard it goes to the opposite side, which isn't going to put what they want in there. They could have just called their representatives and said, "Here's what we freaking want," and stop doing this overkill.
Regardless of Democrat and Republican, right? Even in a state that's so-called a safe state for Democrats or safe for Republicans, you're only talking about 57% of the people voting one way or the other. You know, so it's very easy to swing that chunk. Like New Jersey is actually might become a swing state again because of the circumstances involved.
All I know about politics, and all that needs to be said about politics, is that most people are politically illiterate when it comes to what they want and what will be the long-term thing of it. But that's
the reason I mentioned the politics, though, is because with the bill like the stop gaming now and whatever,
stop killing games.
Yeah,
stop gaming now. That's part software's version.
Is they're proposing that there be a law put in place to do this, right? So politicians are the ones who put these laws in place, right? Mm-hmm. So if they, let's say hypothetically they put this law in place, let's say it's in the United States. I don't care what happened in Europe, to be honest, other than Sage alive, you know.
So, what about Tyrion, you heartless person?
I thought he was in Canada.
No, he's like 2 hours away from Sage.
Oh well, then those two gotta live. There you go.
Everybody else in Europe, you're all screwed.
Yeah,
I got friends in freaking Bulgaria. I don't want them to get hurt.
They survived the Soviet Union. They can survive anything else.
They also survived the Turks.
Yeah. So
sorry.
So like I said, let's say this is in the U.S., right? To keep it simple, they propose in one state they proposed this law, this save gaming forever, whatever it's called,
game preservation law.
Yeah, and they passed this law, and there's some provisions stuck in it that seems really good, and then
there's a whole bunch of stuff in it that's not. Yeah.
7 years later, some politician says, "Wait a minute, well, of course we can save gaming forever. We can, ban this type of game or whatever, or we can put a tax on this type of game that we don't like. Like maybe they have fishing games, and this law allows them to tax fishing to 800%.
Curse you, fishermen! Curse you.
Well, because maybe they're lefties who hate hurting animals.
I mean,
so like then you get an extreme backlash the other way. People are like, wait a minute, you stopped our fishing games? We're going to vote a law. Let's hentai games be legal now.
Hentai fishing games.
Yeah. Like, politics are like that. Like you want to try to minimize government involvement, whenever possible, just because.
Shout out to Crimson, by the way.
It will. They inevitably will fuck it up. That's the reality.
I mean, sure, but I would argue that right now, we have consumer protections that just aren't being enforced because they don't touch it on the topic. So,
well, the number one consumer protection is a lawsuit, and more people need to sue over this. This is my biggest complaint about a lot of big YouTubers, by the way, right?
Well,
So
I guess I'm not getting complaints.
One guy I like is Jerry from the Quartering because he will sue people. Okay, he's proven over years, and that's why he get. That's why when he calls YouTube and whatever, they listen because they know he will sue people, right? But then when you hear someone else bitch about stuff like I don't know, even Geeks and Gamers, for example, when they bitch about stuff, they don't sue anyone.
They don't have the means to sue people, buddy.
No, he certainly has a means at this point in his time.
He can go broke from a freaking meetup, dude. What are you talking about?
He is loaded. Him and Gary are now loaded. Okay, they've gone to the upper they're no longer
the upper echelon. You mean?
They're no longer in the middle class of YouTubers. They're in the upper class. Okay.
Well, on YouTube, sure, yeah, because they have.
Do you know how much money they make off those conventional things they have?
The meetups.
Yeah, the meetups.
They don't sell tickets, so I have no idea.
So they get a cut of anything that, like, if they, let's say you go to a Geeks and Gamers meetup or whatever, and they have some sales in their meetup area, they get a cut of that stuff.
From what I understand, they promise people will come and drink bunch of booze and eat a lot of tacos, and that's what gets them the venue for free.
And when they book a restaurant and people pay for that or whatever,
they're bars, but yeah,
they'll get a cut. You know, that's how that works.
I don't know for sure that that's what they do, so I will not say that's what they do because there's no way to prove
having worked in the hospitality industry.
Sure, I'm not doubting that there are people who do that, but I mean, getting a place for free and then also getting a piece of the cut is kind of a strange concept.
Well, you can't. There's no state in America where you can give alcohol for free.
No, not alcohol. They get the venue for free.
The venue, but the venue is a minimal cost anyway.
No. I'm saying if they get the venue for free, like somebody's like, our friends over here are letting us use their venue. If they're paying them, they're not letting them use it. They're already just paying
for
the
stuff at the venue, the drinks, the food, and whatever.
Yeah, well, usually, from what I understand, because I haven't been to one because none of them are near me, but from what I understand, they usually pay for like the first round of tacos or the first round of alcohol for people, like the Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic guys do.
And then the other,
so they're paying for this stuff, and everything else goes straight to the venue, and that's how the venue.
Everyone else who pays 20% of some number goes as a kickback to Geeks and Gamers or Nerdrotic. That's just how it works. And
I mean, that might be the norm. I don't think that's necessarily the way it runs.
I don't begrudge them that because.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I do not feel comfortable saying that's exactly how they do it, even if that's a normal thing in hospitality, because this is just a bunch, as they call themselves, a bunch of retards who are just meeting together with cool people and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. Maybe they are doing exactly as you're saying, and maybe they're doing it the way they're saying it themselves. I don't know. Personally, I don't care. But the point is that I don't think they're like Tim Pool, where they're raking in millions and millions and millions of dollars every year.
Tim Pool has gone into the cutie pie territory. The Geeks and Gamers.
Cutie pie?
Cutie pie, whatever it is.
PewDiePie.
Cutie pie, whatever.
No, PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Pew.
The guy retired and is still raking in like tens of $millions a month.
Well, I think he also has a couple businesses that keep him afloat that way too. But my point is that I don't care how they make money. I don't care if they have all the money. I hope they get all the money. But there's things that they're like, I'd like to do this, but I don't think I have the money. And it's like, well, if there were these tens of $1 million errors that you think they are, they'd be able to do that.
If Jeremy from the Quartering can sue, so can Geeks and Gamers and Nerdrotic, and then that's
I think Jeremy from the Quartering has a lot less expenses in terms of like people to pay.
Full staff. He has a full production with Tim Pool with staff and everything now.
Last time I watched him, he had a single editor / producer, and that was basically it because it's still in his basement. I don't think he has
he has an actual studio.
Well, maybe he's updated. I don't know, but I also know he has multiple businesses on top of that, and he sells the coffee brand coffee
So
or whatever.
so does
Like,
Tim Pool. So does
well, I know Tim Pool does, yes, but I also know Tim Pool sells probably more coffee than Jeremy from the Quartering. But my point is that there's stuff that Geeks and Gamers are like, I'd love to do this, but we don't have a feasible way to do this. Like, I don't know if you know about the Cobra chair everyone wants Jeremy to get. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay, so there's this big, huge Cobra chair, and it's huge. And everybody's like, buy this, we'll raise money. And it's like, I don't know, man, that's $3,000. I don't want to put $3,000. If he's a millionaire, $3,000 to like totally just look awesome since he loves G.I. Joes, I don't think that would be a problem for him. He's very, very fiscal for whatever reason. Where I am a collector, am obviously not fiscal.
Probably his wife would kill him.
I don't think he's married.
I think he's married with kids.
I believe he has kids, but I don't think they're together.
Well, I think they're together, maybe not married, but they're married, you know.
He's always like, dude, this guy spends more time online than I spend my entire day at work and sleeping combined. There's no way this guy's married or has a girlfriend.
So some women are like that, though. I mean, I have
a hard time believing that, but I don't think he's married, but maybe he has a girlfriend or whatever. And he talks about his daughter, but he lives in the top left side of Florida, but he spends a lot of time in Orlando where he's just gone for months at a time. So I don't see that being a normal relationship, let alone healthy, but maybe he does. Well, I don't know, but I know he has a daughter at least, but that's about it.
I had an aunt and uncle, they're dead now, but married for over 45 years before he died. And for the bulk of their marriage, other than stuff that happened in bed, she constantly shoved him out of the house. Like, go to work, go camping, go to the ball game, go whatever. Just get away from me, except when we're sleeping together. Like, you know. And
I don't believe I would call that a healthy relationship, but
no, they were great though. They're like
I'm not saying
kids,
that they. I'm not saying that they don't
happy, and you know, like that was their relationship. Like,
well, the way you're putting it verbally, which maybe be just an overhype of it, that doesn't sound like a healthy relationship.
They had the part of their relationship work was
if she encouraged him to do the things he wanted to do, that's one thing. If she's like, get out of my house, then no, that's not a healthy relationship. That's what I'm saying. The way you're explaining to me is more of a get out of my house rather than a.
That's how Italian women talk to us. You know,
I don't know. We have all Italian men marrying non-Italian women because that's just who we all end up with.
Well, that's breaking down the culture there. But anyway,
not really. Anyway, we keep the culture pretty strong.
The European Gaming Preservation onslaught or whatever it's called
initiative.
Well, in Europe it'll be an onslaught. You know. Like they'll form a European Commission, the European Gaming Shutdown Prevention Elimination Convention or whatever it's called, and they'll have to put 64 MPs on it from the European.
Did you watch Lewis? Is it Lewis Rossman?
I watch him occasionally,
but like he did a thing with Stop Killing Games. Ross guy.
Rossman's problem: he's right on issue, wrong on solution 90% of the time.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like you know who Lewis Rossman is.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he had like a 3-hour sit down with Ross, ironically, from Accursed Farms, as well as I guess he brought in a programmer developer kind of guy who deals in software or whatever to like explain like what might not work, might work. I haven't got to watch it yet because it's far on my list of things I have to watch or listen to. But Lewis Rossman was telling him, because Ross from Accursed Farms was saying, I'm not taking any money. I'm not fundraising money. I don't know what to do with it. I wouldn't know, blah, blah, blah. And Lewis Rossman's just chewing him up on a separate video saying basically like, that's why you pay a person with the money that you're getting to look after the money financially. And then you just keep fundraising it. And then you turn around and use that for whatever the case might be. Now, to me, from what you're saying, that sounds like a good opportunity for him to, essentially basically do those lawsuits that you're talking about.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is that the legal system is a nightmare to deal with. It's very long, it's arduous, it's not friendly to people.
Well,
thing after thing after thing. Like it's something where it can get outrageously expensive really quickly, and it's going to be him and those people who want to preserve games backing him versus all the other major publishers and studios who are against this, which we're about to find out what they're doing. So we'll get to that in a second. But all of them that have technically way more money at their disposal to knock this down a peg. So you've got him with potentially getting several millions of dollars to do a lawsuit versus all these companies coming together and saying, we're going to smack that down. But if it comes to a legal proceeding in terms of like law making, and they say, you know, companies have to have an end of life plan for their games, even if they disconnect from the game is still playable.
I would say up front, a company has to tell you in any service agreement, and they can't change it.
It shouldn't even be a service agreement. That should be the title of the game. This game will die eventually. It should be the title of the game, because
it'll say
it's ridiculous.
When we end of life this game, it will no longer be able to play. If they want to do that, so you know,
it's actually we Minecraft this game.
Well, if you're buying, World of Porpoise Combat or whatever it's called, like a World of Porpoise Combat.
That's not.
I'm making it on the fly, just so.
Okay,
so
that's fine. Sure, go for it.
Yeah. So when you buy World of Porpoise Combat, the porpoise like the animal, like in 8 years or whatever, when they decide they're gonna develop it, it's just gonna stop working. You know that ahead of time, so you can choose to invest hundreds of dollars buying updates to the game or whatever.
That's the same stuff they've been doing in Nintendo for the Switch too, for some of the games where they're like, these are third-party games that don't have the game actually on the cartridge or whatever. They'll say that on the actual box where it's pretty obvious to see on the front. Now, here's the funny part. They're looking at it and saying, why are our sales like less than half of what we expected to make? And it's like, oh, I don't know, wonder, maybe because you're morons who didn't think gamers actually want to have the game. Because they're trying to push this, we can make it cheaper for ourselves.
But that is the market at play, right?
Well,
so
yeah,
that's what
I'm saying is that, yes, but that's not going to necessarily change anything. Because those publishers might just say, well, we're just not going to do our games on this platform, period.
And then they're going to approach, okay?
Well, yeah, I know they're idiots, but that's besides the point. I'm saying
I said there's a twofold approach to the solution, okay?
Oh, okay.
Now, you remember what happened with the woke stuff where eventually we started organizing like boycotts of like Target and all that sort of stuff. And that worked, and it caused these companies to change their behavior. So one fold is we have to organize boycotts of gaming, which has happened, by the way. Like you said, what was the game? Well, Battlefield. I want to call it Battlefield 3, but Purple Air Battlefield got boycotted basically by the fans, right?
Yeah, but Battlefield's already a super niche game to begin with.
But it got boycotted by the fans.
Yeah,
and
DICE changed things, kind of.
Yeah. So again, what was
another game? They still don't know how to freaking do a click sprint button toggle. That's
whatever. That's semantics. That's a sidetrack.
That's what I'm going to uproar about.
There have been other games that's happened with, but it's not being done enough with these games to say. And then they're doing it over woke stuff. They do it over this terms of service thing. Where
but I would argue that it's more like how Wheel of Time. I'm going to beat that horse dead, even though it's dead already. When Wheel of Time was out on TV show on Amazon, it wasn't us that talked against it that ultimately caused its downfall. It was just the fact that it was just trash. And people who watched it were like, what the frick am I watching? And they stopped watching.
Very critical point, okay? There's a lot of people in the Wheel of Time community who wanted to say, like, this is another spin of the wheel, or,
turning
like,
a wheel.
Except for being something different, just, that type of thing. And a lot of us were like, fuck that shit, Like,
well, and that's my point, though, is that, like, there were a lot of them that wanted it to be the way it is, and there were lots of us, which we probably are more, but even if we're less or more, I don't think them or us, either of us, were the ultimate effect.
But this wasn't sold as a woke interpretation of Wheel of Time. We were told originally that was going to be an accurate interpretation of Wheel of Time.
Well, yes, but it's accurate from a subjective perspective. That's the problem.
Well, I don't want to get all subjective, objective debate. The whole
flamethrower.
the whole like Rosamund Pike, who I used to have a lot of respect for as an actress. You know, she was a Wheel of Time fan for years, and she said, "Oh, I'll make sure she said, "I want this to be book accurate." She said that at one point. You know, and then
Well, that's because she's trying to suck people in, and then she can show them the real her.
that's what I think happened. You know, we agree on that. That being said, the point
we don't agree here very often, folks, but when we do,
if Rafe, if Rafe had said, "I'm making a woke version of Wheel of Time for us on the
it would have
in the
instantly.
LGBT community, I'm making it." We all were like, "Okay, fine, go for it. You know, just do your thing and leave us alone."
I mean, he did that for third season. He didn't. He did it for third season. He was on air basically talking how he wanted to make LGBT.
Because he was trying to get LGBT. He was trying to salvage the show.
Well, he was trying to get LGBTQ representation, LGBTQ plus representation, to be normalized by people by seeing it all over the show. It was terrible in the show, even as a normal representation. Like, it was just like, that's not realistic. I'm not talking terrible in like ew. I'm talking terrible as in like it was
just have wokeism, but had a horrible writing as well. Like,
well, yeah, but that's ultimately the thing. Though,
even though in that community thought the show had bad writing, you know. Like look at Daniel Green. He's in the LGBTQ plus community.
Guys, you know I'm bi. I'm bi. By the way, did you know I'm bi? I'm bi.
Yeah, and he for the first season or two was making mental excuses for the show, and because it had LGBTQ plus bi whatever people, and like even he by the third season was saying the writing is horrible.
Yeah, but he also got turned into a pariah for a lot of things. But
well, not by us, but yes, not by the Wheel of Time LGBT community.
Even by his own fans, he got turned into pariah for some other
only by the fans like us, though. Only by the fans like us.
I wouldn't. I know I'm talking about his fans, not our. We're not his fans.
No, but the fans like us who don't want a woke Wheel of Time. You know what I mean?
But I'm talking about his people's reaction to him. I'm not talking. I'm talking people who subscribe to his YouTube channel, watch his YouTube channel, care about his opinion. Even to them, because of other events that happened around that time, people were disassociating with him for other things.
The vast majority of people who dropped him, like me, were because
I stopped when he started. Him and freaking Dusty Wheel Matt came out or did that stupid video about how the Two Rivers is extremely diverse because I'm an idiot and I don't know how to freaking reason things out, right? Like when they did that, I was like, nah, bro, you guys, you've missed the plot and you don't know how to think logically or reasonably, and just pack it up. Like that's when they lost me. When they took things in. He goes out and actually cuts out a gnarled old root. See, look at the color of the gnarled root. I'm like, you do realize that when you go below ground, it's literally dyed by the ground because tree roots are actually like white most of the time. It's just they get water, dirt, saturation. They get the coloring of that, but they're normally white, right? Like that's all stupid. And the whole video was stupid. But him and Matt got together. Not you, but Dusty Wheel Matt got together and did that whole stupid video, and then that's when I think Sage and possibly you, I know me and Sage talked about it, came out with a thing. We're like, here's if you took a pie chart of 7 of the major ethnicities and you put them all in the same city, like Manetheren, and then we're going to take out a remnant of a remnant, which is like 10% of 10% or something like that. I think we got down to 5% of the population.
We talked about this.
Yeah. And then anyway, basically just put it down to as small a number as you could possibly do while still having enough people. And then saying, all right, these people go to an isolated location and then they breed over centuries. What happens? Well, from a what's it? Not genome.
Well, they homogenize.
They homogenize. It bleeds out the extremities of everything, and they all become the same. And I was like, you're not going to have outright Asians. You're not going to have outright Europeans. You're not going to have outright Africans. You're not going to have outright South Americans. You're not going to have outright anything. It's all going to be the same, which is why we kind of landed on that they're more likely olive-skinned because of their dark hair and they're farmers, because olive-skinned is kind of the representation of the mixture of all these major races. Yeah. So it's like, it makes logical sense that they'd be more like Roman and Greek than they would freaking anything else, because olive-skinned peoples of the Mediterranean are kind of the melting pot of that time, because the Mediterranean was like where all the major populations and civilizations were after basically Sumeria. So in that time period, it's like it makes logical sense that's the way that had happened. But we also know from the actual books what people look like, and we also know freaking from the descriptions of the actual nations and their citizenry and everything, that like all the Kyrian are the same. They're all short. They all wear the same drab colors that are dark and everything. You got the Tyrans, freaking nut jobs that look like they're Spanish, and you got the Ilianers all have the freaking the beard without the upper mustache on their lip. Like, all of them have descriptions. They're all homogenous in their own nations. Yes, people travel there, but when you see somebody, you know that's a person from that place. But regardless, that's their stupidity, and that's where I lost Daniel Green on that one, and Matt from Dusty Wheel. They seemed really nice up to that point, and then they didn't even they thought people were being racist or something, rather than just concerned that the source material was being
the point
chucked out with
what
baby in the bathwater.
was different than this. The point I'm saying is the people who dropped Daniel Green were not the people who were in the LGBT community. It was the rest of us.
I'm sure there's a bit of everybody, but sure, I don't specifics don't really matter. But in terms of the Wheel of Time thing, we're getting this LGBTQ stuff thrown at us, and then it basically lost its base for the show because it was just bad. You didn't have to have anything else to it. It was bad. It wasn't as high quality as Game of Thrones. It wasn't as high of a quality as Lord of the Rings. Not Rings of Prime, but actual Lord of the Rings. It wasn't high quality. It was just kind of like mediocre, if not meh, if not horrible. In some situations, it was pretty bad. Like I brought it up with somebody on Facebook, and they made the argument, because I was like, Game of Thrones is made better, and I was putting up the point that Shadar Logoth and Tar Valon both use the same set for their, cities type thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I made that point. I'm like, but it's noticeable. Like, it's extremely noticeable. They didn't try. It's not like let's do our first set of this, and we'll make it a particular way, and then we'll carve it out a little bit more, and then we'll change the style and make it Tar Valon. Like, use the same thing twice, but, like, it's styrofoam, so you can, like, carve it out a little bit differently, and so you could change the architectural style, like columns and all that kind of stuff. They didn't do that. They just used the same thing, copy-paste for both of them, and I'm pretty sure that it was the exact same set. So you had the same narrow paths, which they should have been much bigger paths, but they used the same thing, and I was like, that's terrible. They're like, but Game of Thrones had a coffee cup in it. I'm like, and you can digitize it out, which is what they did. Like, if that's the crime of Game of Thrones, that's a great crime to get rid of, because that's like nothing in comparison to the constant terribleness of this show, Wheel of Time. So, like, it was like they looked for the most minuscule thing. I had honestly forgotten that the coffee cup was even there. I was just like, Game of Thrones just has good quality. Like, it's good quality. Did somebody forget something? Sure. Is that the end of the world? Not really. Is having entire sets be different? That's a different story.
There was a show a few years ago, like a medieval type show, where in one of the background scenes, a can of Pepsi. And
a what?
In one of the background scenes, there was a can of Pepsi.
Oh, yeah. Dude, we're going up like 300 since I started looking at this earlier. Goodness gracious. All right. Let's move to Le Video and see the update. This is a moderately short one, but I'll let him deal with himself. Let me know if it's too quiet.
Hello! I have a development on the Stop Killing Games campaign. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's recently crossed the 1 million signature mark, though I'm assuming nothing. In fact, I've been given stats that there was a previous initiative that had 250,000 of its signatures invalidated, and I could see us setting a new record there. So keep signing, that's the first thing. Second, for anyone who doubts how powerful this initiative can be, we now have a lobbying group issuing a statement about us. Do you think if we had no chance of changing things, we would have lobbyists coming out against us? Well, a big one is Video Games Europe. Best I can tell, this is essentially the voice of the industry. So of course they're going to be against any proposal we make, because they're ideologically opposed to us being able to retain our games. I really can't emphasize that enough. Even if every developer in the world was for our proposal, the industry would still be against it. Because it's not developers who make most of the big decisions. It's shareholders and companies worth billions. So with that in mind, let's go through this statement quick by our opposition here. We appreciate the passion of our community. However, the decision to discontinue online services is multifaceted, never taken lightly, and must be an option for companies when an online experience is no longer commercially viable. Well, I have great news for you, Video Games Europe. We are in no way seeking to impede your right to discontinue online services. We are saying you can shut down your games whenever you want. But you have to do that responsibly, in a way that doesn't take back rights you already sold to customers. Yeah, some people forget that companies have to sell you some rights to begin with to even play the games. We understand that it can be disappointing for players.
I like how he puts the "we agree" right, and lights it up. So this part should be an obvious, but this is the same stance that Pirate Software was taking. So all I can come to the conclusion of, especially after the Pirate Software debacle, all I can come to the conclusion of is that they're being extremely disingenuous. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts. It's legit disingenuous behavior on their part. So,
well,
but when it does,
go ahead.
So yes, in a sense, but they're going to argue from their financial interest. The system is set up that way.
Sure, but if you're going to do that, you're going to argue. You want to steelman your opponent and then destroy it. You don't want to strawman your opponent and then try to destroy them, because then you're destroying something else, not them.
The system is set up to resolve things through conflict, and it's worked remarkably well for centuries. So I'm not going to worry.
I mean, if they want to start a crusade, we'll win. Well, there's more of us than there are of them. There you go.
Happen, the industry ensures that players are given fair notice of the prospective changes in compliance with local consumer protection laws. Okay, well, first off, I'm not a lawyer, but this guy at WBS Legal is, and he thinks Ubisoft probably broke the law when it shut down the crew, giving players only 3 months notice, when they should have given more like 2 years. Yeah, you know, Ubisoft, one of your members. So this is probably a false
sick burn
statement out the gate. But you know what? That's not even our issue. So I don't even care how much notice you're giving to players. What I care about is that you're not...
It wouldn't matter how much notice you give people if it's left in a responsible state where people can still play the game after it's gone. Which, if this happens and there has to be an end of life and stuff, and they even put it into backwards compatibility, I'll be happy when Temtem closes, because then I can finally have a single player mode. Because I'm sick and tired of Temtem not having a single player mode. It has to be online always, and it pisses me off.
Depriving them of their purchase. Private servers...
And it is depriving me of my purchase when I'm trying to play single off player or offline.
Are not always a viable alternative option for players, as the protections we put in place to secure players' data, remove illegal content, and combat unsafe community content would not exist and would leave rights holders liable. Okay,
Not if you disown it. If you're no longer carrying it and you're not actively utilizing the rights holders' position on that particular topic, why would you be held liable for something you have nothing to do with? It doesn't make sense.
Well,
which I'm pretty sure Ross is about to say. Well, there's the claim that it's complicated, but then there's the reality of it's really not that complicated.
Things here. We have to break it down. Private servers are not always a viable alternative option. So they're saying for a new...
Actually, yes. Yes, they are.
game concept, which hasn't even been made yet. Sometimes there is no way they can add an end-of-life plan to the design. Their programmers' fingers simply can't type that. I would love to see them say this to a room full of developers. I think the industry would be surprised how viable it was if the law said you can't take back the limited license rights you already sold to the customer. And this next part. Yes, this part is true. Players will absolutely be getting a rougher and more wild experience playing an unsupported game.
The old wild, wild west of the gaming industry. Those are good times.
I happen to know a thing or two about that. So yes, that's the nature of anything unsupported. That's not a good excuse to destroy what people paid for.
It's also one of those things where, okay, if a company, let's say Ubisoft, since they're the ones in hot water at the moment, let's say Ubisoft has an Assassin's Creed game and they make it online always, or always online, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, this kind of sucks. And everything's like super rigid, and they don't allow you to say quote unquote toxic things or be hate speech or people or whatever the case might be. And then they're like, we're yoinking, but they have to leave it in single player mode or whatever. Like, they're not supporting the game anymore, whatever the case might be. It's in working condition despite them not being there. And then everything goes in hate speech, everything goes in quote unquote toxic masculinity or toxicity or whatever the case might be. To the people who are playing that have a problem with those things, they'll probably stop playing, or they'll continue playing and mute people, or they'll just not care. But that's not going to come back on Ubisoft, because Ubisoft doesn't have anything to do with the game anymore. It's done. It's like you write a book and you stop publishing the book. Well, the book's out there. It's what people do or say with or about the book is irrelevant to the publisher, because the publisher is not saying those things. So if you get like I don't know, a really high controversial book of some sort, whatever genre, doesn't really matter. Or actually, no, let's go the romantasy guys, the girls who love their smut. Sheesh. I mean, sluts apply, but the smut type fantasy where, you know, they had the really famous video where, like, you know, the girl's getting drowned with her head underwater and the guy's doing back shots on her. And it's like, that is not going back on the publisher while the publisher is producing it. So somebody comes up with something just as extreme that's equal, and they can't be like, this is gonna make our brand look bad. I'm like, you already made your brand look bad. This is just icing on the cake, guys. This is just letting people do what they want. Like,
yeah.
It's stupid that they think. I know they know it doesn't get back on them. They want people to think it does so that they have an argument, and they don't really.
It just means they're on their own. But then they say this part. It would leave rights holders liable. Okay, I am not a lawyer, but my first impression is this strikes me as very not true. The way I read this, they're saying they are incapable of writing an end-user license agreement that absolves them of all liability on shutdown. Like planning for...
You shouldn't even need that. Once the rights are absolved...
Wait. Under the laws of various countries, and so we're talking about Europe here, they would not... There probably is a restriction on them doing so. Of absolving themselves of all liability for product.
Which I think that if we talk to Ross from Accursed Farms, who's doing the Stop Killing Games thing, and said, hey, when we put this forward, get some lawyers together and make sure several things happen. One, if a company is doing a withdrawal from a game, whatever it might be, that somebody has paid for to own it, in other words, they purchased the game, not content in the game, purchased the game. That game stays in that person's personal control for whatever the case might be.
So then you have to have your lawyers talking to the lawyers for the European Union.
No. I'm talking about like making a rough draft to explain to the lawmakers in Europe what is expected, and that this type of stuff, like, this should be expected if somebody ceases to do anything with this game. They shouldn't be held liable for anything that happens after the game. Like, we don't hold car manufacturers liable if somebody uses one to rob a bank. We don't hold gun manufacturers liable. Well, you shouldn't. I mean, some people try. You shouldn't hold gun industry companies liable if somebody uses a firearm to commit a crime. Like, we don't do that already. So being like, well, no, we would do it in this situation is kind of silly.
Lawsuits underway against gun companies, by the way.
Well, yes, but you can have a lawsuit for anything, whether it's correct or incorrect. Like, it doesn't matter.
And in some states, they're going to win. That's the way the laws are.
I don't think gun people. I don't. Well, the thing is if you have a company from a particular state and they sell a gun to somebody, and that person goes from that place, that state, to another state, they have no control. It's like they can't pull your gun from you. They have zero ability to change anything. So that would be a dumb argument.
Just again, the issue is not what the issue is. Lawyers will get their hands on this and screw it up inevitably. That's what my point is.
Sure, but I'm saying, like, if you have lawyers come up and they say, hey, we need to make this fine-tuned for it to be understood by the European Union, all the nations that are in the European Union, whether it be, obviously German, French, Dutch, whatever the case might be, everyone who's involved with it, every one of their lawyers from all the different places understand what is being asked. And then being like, we don't want them to be held liable if they discontinue. Like, put that in the freaking thing. Like, put the aspects, like, we're trying to build a Frankenstein monolith of all the things we want and all the things we don't want to be done in this thing. So
sounds great.
Sure.
Implementation is an issue.
Well, implementation's always an issue for literally everything, because there's always something that could go wrong. But I'm just saying that if you're going to do this, like if this whole thing's moving forward, which it hopefully will, in terms of getting the companies to shove off, because we're going to get screwed if they don't, and we're going to get screwed if they do. It's like, it's whatever. We're going to get screwed either way by the mindset we would hold. But this, at least, we're not killing off every game in the freaking industry and then having them come at us with lawsuits because we retain a digital right to something that we own. That's just stupid. But in terms of them putting together, having lawyers and stuff coming together and saying, yes, this is a feasible concept. Yes, this is something that we could make in this particular instance, so it doesn't have to blanket the entire EU for every possible consumer product and everything. It could be literally just for the gaming industry. And then lock that down and just say, here's what we were proposing. This is what we would like to be considered by the EU.
Okay.
And then whether they do it or not, that's on the EU. I mean, everybody in the EU can get pissed off at their representatives if they don't represent them properly. I'm just saying, having it be put together as a giant, juicy pie, and it has all the goodies in it, and it also tells you, like, this is what we want, here's what we don't want, and this could be one of those. We don't want them to be held liable, because that would be ridiculous and retarded. And then just move on from there and then go to the next thing. And if the EU struggles to understand this, that means they're old people who shouldn't be in office to begin with. But that's anyway.
For end of life, apparently it's just not possible. So me as a layman, I'm wondering what's the problem with adding a line like this to the EULA? Once our company ends support, we are not responsible for any and all issues that arise from users continuing to operate the game in a discontinued and unsupported state, and absolve ourselves from any and all liability pertaining to its continued use. There's probably a better way to
I'm going to go back real quick. Ooh, no, that's the volume. I don't want the volume.
Say that, but you get the...
Ooh. At the bottom here, it says, this assumes our company has ensured, or this assumes our company has ensured the game is left in a reasonably playable state at the time of support, support ending, with no further connections to the company or affiliated parties being necessary for its continued operation. That's a very important thing to add to this. It's a caveat that is necessary, because otherwise they would just say, oh, we're cutting our hands free, and then they don't leave it in that playable state. So then, of course, errors will arise from it. Now, any error that does arise, somebody in the fandom is going to fix it. That's just how the internet is when it comes to games. There's always somebody out there who cares about nothing else but that game, and they will make it work no matter what. And when they do, they make it public, it gets put in forums, people go grab it, and then they make their game playable again. It's going to be that way all the time. There'll be YouTube videos, want to monetize that concept by putting it out there as news, whatever the case might be. That's a necessity, and is very much so necessary.
Pertaining to its continued use. There's probably a better way to say that, but you get the idea.
Again, gather a bunch of lawyers from all the EU people, places that can cover all the different nations as coverage, and then throw the idea at them and say, I need you to explain this in the best way possible. And then that's all you can do. But
they seem to be saying a line like that is just impossible to write. See, I'm puzzled by this, because as a consumer, I've seen all kinds of things have support end, but I still get to keep them? I'm just on my own. That's a very common thing. I think we need a lawyer to weigh in on this.
Vindication.
So if we take them at their word, it sounds like they're concerned about protecting customers. Okay, but their solution is customers must have their purchase taken away from them forever. We have to destroy our customers' games to protect them from themselves.
We must destroy our customers to protect them from themselves.
Huh.
That sounds like a politician.
I normally don't like to use
that's left-wing politician for you.
That's all politicians, good sir. That's a politician thing, not a party thing. That's a profession thing.
This phrase because it's thrown around too much, but this is beyond nanny state. This is more like Terminator state. Take a game like Star Siege Tribes.
I don't know if you ever played that game. Tribes is fun. It was like the Battlefield games, but you had like different clans. They'd go on this big battle and just shoot. Inversion was a stupid thing to add in that game, but aside from that, it was fantastic.
For all purposes, that's a game intended to run online with other people, or over a network at the very least. It was discontinued in 2004, but you can still run it today, online. This lobbying group seems to be saying that's a liability. No one should have been permitted to run this game after 2004, and it's a mistake that this game is still allowed to exist.
I would like to add, and this is just a caveat because of my traumatic experience playing Tribes when it came to inversion. Why are controllers not have an automatic button on them that you push to cause an inversion? Like on the controller, not the game, on the controller, so that when you're playing, you can automatically invert it if you want to. So regardless of the way they make the game, you can just push the button and it just inverts everything for you. So if going down pulls you up and going up pulls you down, you can push the button and now up goes up and down goes down, like, or vice versa, like whatever you're more comfortable with. Because inverted look is a thing across tons of games in the systems, but why not just have it built onto the controller for games that don't give you that option? Like, I don't understand.
Because of the risk to consumers. We would have destroyed every last copy of it back in 2004 if we could have. We couldn't then, but we can now. So that's our business model with new games. See, I take that as extremely hostile.
That sounds like a declaration of war.
To both customers and preservation. So my question is, why can't we allow customers to continue playing the game, but adding a splash screen saying something like, warning, this game is no longer supported. Running it could represent a risk to your security. We assume no liability for what may happen as a result. That strikes me as a reasonable compromise.
That is the definition of reasonable right there. Just saying.
In addition, many titles are designed from the ground up to be online only. In effect, these proposals would curtail developer choice by making these video games prohibitively expensive to create. Okay, this part is a little more complicated because every game is different. But when I see this, I'm thinking of auto manufacturers saying how they can't afford to make cars if they're required to include seatbelts in them. Because no one ever made that argument back in the 60s. However, I think there is a big piece being left out of the discussion here. A whole lot of the complexity and cost of making an online game comes from all the microservices involved. And guess what? We don't need the vast majority of them for an end-of-life build. I talked to a developer and he gave me a big list of examples we don't need. Payment processing, anti-cheat, analytics, voice chat. There's so much here that's not necessary to just run the damn game. In fact, I have a quote from him. We are not asking for 98% of the game. We're asking for the 2% of game logic for main gameplay functionality.
Which is, I would consider ironic because in technicality, right? Even if this stuff was there, like, even if you wanted to do, like, the Battle Pass system wouldn't exist because there's no Battle Pass anymore, but it wouldn't need to be there because it's not necessary to be there. But things like double EXP or XP weekends, you could just have that built in to the game to follow a clock on your computer. Like, that might be like 1 or 2 lines of code. That can't be possibly that expensive to make.
Well, again, it's not. You got to remember, these games, even the simple ones, are tens of millions of lines of code now.
Sure, but what my point is that with this stuff, this is all the stuff that they claim makes it expensive to make, but they're already making it that way, and they're going to be a live service. So presumably, if they make a good game, they'll make this money back, and then some. Which is what they're going for, is the profit aspect. Or maybe they're building an IP name, I don't know. It could be brand. But that type of stuff, like if you're removing the Battle Pass system, or you're removing the daily missions, I mean, you could even have daily missions be left there. Dynamic XP could be left there. rewards being distributed. Like, that could be just software stuff that's integrated into the actual software. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's a server only aspect. Like, all this stuff could just exist in that way, like built in. That's how they did it for the old MMOs, like Guild Wars 1. Like, if they took Guild Wars 1 offline any day, it would quite literally just, there you go. You can play it. Just connect it, get people to find a hub thing, connect to that same thing. You're playing with people. Like, it would be very simple. Or at the very least, leave us the tools, and then our own fandoms will recreate what we need to recreate in order to do this. Like, it's that simple. But saying like, oh, it'll be too difficult and way too expensive. You guys are blowing hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes $500 million on games that fail because they're not good games. Like, you're complaining how hard it is to like create the game, but you don't even know how hard it is to make a good game because you don't recognize that what you're doing is not good by definition.
Except even that's not true. We're not asking for that directly. We're asking for the same rights we already bought for the game, which they can probably fulfill by providing that 2%, as he puts it. So let's cut out all this extra crap before we start talking about how cost prohibitive and end of life build.
Or at the very least, all that stuff that's going in there, have the end of life be all this stuff gets cut with it. And then they're not going to support it, but then the devs, or not the devs, the fandom that wants to go in there and be like the quote unquote new devs for the public domain can go in there and either make it working or disable it as they will. Like, this could all be toggle stuff. Just be like, toggle on, toggle off, toggle on, toggle off, toggle on, toggle off. All that kind of stuff, just so you can have the game be that simple for them to either put together or just leave it this way, and then they'll put the toggles on themselves, and they'll be like, okay, this is going to be way too much, so we're going to remove 30% of this, and then, oh, we're going to get this is too much, so we're going to remove 45% of that, and then they keep doing that. But then it's not the company who produced the game's problem anymore. So why do they care? And the only argument I can think of is they want to kill a game to make you buy another game. It's the same reason that Nintendo killed the eShop for the DS games, because then they can turn around and sell you those same games through the Switch Online. But not in the way that you can buy them in the shop, but in that you have to say subscribe to them constantly, every month, every year, to even play the games. Because like on the DS, you could go. Mine's not around me at the moment, but one of my many. But if I was to buy before they closed, I'm pretty sure I told this story not too long ago. If I was to buy the Pokemon games on the Nintendo eShop for the DS, 3DS XL, they're like $5 to $10 a piece. Yeah. And if I had known that before they closed, because once you buy it, even when they close the eShop, you can still download the games, right? Like, why they leave them open, make more money, I don't know, but whatever. Well, I mean, I do know, but we'll get to that. So if I did, I would have bought like $60 worth of games that they had on there that were legit games digitally that I could keep on my thing. I don't have to have the card. So I could play like Pokemon Blue, Red, and Yellow on a DS that has no cartridge. There's no way for me to play that game on that system except through the eShop. And I was like, oh, I can take Pokemon with me. I can still connect Wi-Fi to somebody else and trade Pokemon. This would be fantastic. I found out a month after it closed, and I can't buy it anymore. The reason why is because they want to get rid of the DSs to make the Switch the new DS. It's the new handheld. But then they don't bring that same system because they could easily just turn the eShop into the same eShop they have, which is terribly optimized, I might add. Yeah. And they could easily move it over, and you could still purchase those games or play or download those games, because the DS games do not have hardware limitations from a system that can do way above it. It would be if it's in the reverse. You can't play Switch games on a DS because the DS can't handle it. But the Switch can handle anything on the DS because the DS's hardware limit is so much lower. So they could easily just say, oh, did you buy stuff from us from the Nintendo DS? You could play that on the Switch now. That would be a huge selling boost for it. Not that I needed necessarily the boost. But when they cut it off, they're saying, we're not going to support this in any shape or form. We don't want your money for this console. We want your money for this console. We don't want to give you those games so you can have them indefinitely, because then you won't pay us a subscriber fee to play Switch Online to get access to our GameCube, our Nintendo 64, our SNES, our NES, any of their old stuff, their Wii games. We're not going to do that because we want you to pay monthly. Like, if they put Ocarina of Time on there, maybe there's rumors there's going to be a remake of Ocarina of Time. I still have it for GameCube and for 64, so I can play it without them. They can shove off. But let's say they pick another game that we like, and then, well, do I want to pay, I don't know, $8 a year to play the game I should technically own? Like, I could buy the game for them from $60 and play it and enjoy myself and everything. And then, I mean, how many years until that game's paid off? Like, the subscriber is great for people who have no vested interest in things, but to remove like the option to purchase the game at all, like if you go to them and say, hey, subscribe for, you know, whatever, I do the family plan, so it's $8 for each of us. Subscribe for the family plan or buy the game for full price, which is going to be much more expensive. Well, guess what? If I really care about the game and I want the physical game, I can get the game physically for the $60. I would happily pay that, and they would get a lot more profit out of that than just paying, you know, $8 a year to play this game. That costs them a lot of money. Now, do they want the subscribers? Yes. Will they keep all those subscribers? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know.
No.
So, it's a pretty two-faced way for the developers to say, oh, look, we're so innocent, but at the same time being dastardly at the same time.
Liz. Now, that does mean designing games so it's easier to turn off all these microservices is a very good idea. And that
also, this paper he's reading is like 5 pages long, but I don't think he's going through all the 5. I think he's only going through the first.
Also means it may not be practical for some existing games. Good thing for the industry, the initiative is not retroactive. And
I want it to be, though. Or at the very least, turn it into abandonware, and then we can take over it. Because we'll find a way to fix it. I want to play my games retroactively, dadgummit.
Most publishers already have a local test environment for a game, which I'm told is bad practice not to. That's half the battle right there. So this statement? No, this one is meme level. I do not believe the industry when they say this is so expensive it's not possible. Especially when it's
because these game developers are extremely fiscally responsible.
been done many times before. This is seatbelts all over again. And how about getting input from big European developers not on this list, like CD Projekt or Larian?
Projekt? I've never heard it called Projekt before. I wonder where he's from. Hey, did he say Lorian? Hold on.
Huh?
Big European developers not on this list, like CD Projekt or Larian.
He said CD. I know it's Larian. I thought he said Lorian. I was like, wow, that's weird. But he said CD Projekt. It's always been CD Projekt, as far as I'm aware, or is it CD Projekt in Poland? I don't know. Either way, that's an interesting way to hear something I've never heard before.
We welcome the opportunity.
And out of those two, Larian is based. CD Projekt Red used to be based. They're no longer based.
We need to discuss our position with policymakers. Yeah, I bet you do. And those who have led the European Citizens Initiative in the coming months. Well, they'll probably be glad to know that's actually not me. I am not the official spokesperson for the initiative. I'm ineligible. I'm more of a super promoter. The reason I'm making this video is I want to inoculate people against these bad faith arguments. Remember, everything they're saying here is their excuse for taking away your purchase with no time frame given and destroying it forever. Is this a good enough excuse for you? It isn't for me, especially when they're lying. I think that's worth taking into consideration.
And even if they weren't lying out of malicious intent, they're lying out of ignorance. Which, if they're the ones running the industry, is a problem for everyone who participates.
Lie has to be intentional.
No, you can lie from omission. And
But for it to be a lie, it has to be intentional.
Well,
that's illegal.
Huh?
That's a legal and moral thing. Like,
well, I mean, from a philosophical thing, no, not technically speaking. I mean, I would consider it more incorrect than a lie, but a lie from omission is a term that has been used for a long time. Now, lie from ignorance, whatever the case might be, If they're doing it from ignorance, that means that they're people who are inept in their own field, and they're the ones running the field. And if they're running the field and they're ignorant on their own field, that's a problem for the whole industry, because that means that you put the most incapable people at the top, while the people who are consuming your product of your industry are way more capable than you, despite having no, or not necessarily no, but like little to no actual experience in that field or that industry. So that's kind of terrifying from a perspective of a consumer or somebody who's a fan of something. But if I'm buying something and then they're telling, well, I can't let you have this game because I'm stupid. It's not like that's a bad reason. And it's like, oh, well, it's expensive. Okay, well, did you make any profit off of this? Yes. Okay, how much you make? Well, we made like 300 million profit. I'm like, and how much would it cost you to make this end of life? 500,000. Like, there you go. You'll still make profit. A lot of profit too. And it's just like, I don't want them to not make profit, but I want them to also understand. And again, I prefer it go retroactive. If it does not go retroactive, it at least has to fall within abandonware, which I think a lot of stuff does. I don't know how games work with abandonware for the most part. But anything that they stop covering should by default go into abandonware, and then abandonware will take over and people will do whatever they got to do to make it work. If it's going to be something in an end of life plan like this and then they cut it off, that just seems reasonable. It's like, if you start developing a game without knowing what the game's going to be, like, hey guys, we're gonna make a game. What game? We have no idea. We'll just put some stuff together and then follow along from there. It's like a type of thing that some authors do, but authors also are just writing their own stuff, and then they'll put their pieces together themselves, and then they'll hopefully make a cohesive story.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
You circled for a few seconds.
I what?
You circled like you timed out.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, they'll hear me on my end because I'm recording it. So it's okay. But no, in terms of like, if an author does it, they'll hopefully make a cohesive story. And if they don't, they're just a bad author, or bad writer, I should say, which is basically the same, redundancy. But if it's a gaming industry, you're like, yeah, let's just make a big open plain, and then we're gonna throw a mountain here, a mountain here, a mountain here, and then we're gonna put all these things here, blah 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 blah. And they still don't know what they're making. That's incompetency. It's the same thing Hollywood's doing right now, where Hollywood's like, we have to do multiple reshoots, we have to do multiple this, multiple that. Well, why do you have to do those multiple things? Because you didn't have a plan. You didn't have a set in stone script. You didn't have set in stone behaviors of personalities and everything like that. You didn't have the tool set on side and standby to say, we need this thing made. We need to make it this way.
That's not why they do reshoots. They do reshoots because they test screen and the audience don't like it.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I'm talking like Chris Gore's talked about, like sometimes they don't have an actual plan. They just don't. So they have to do reshoots to eventually make it right. But if they had a good, solid script, you wouldn't have to do reshoots because nobody would hate that, even in a test screening. So
really would. No.
No, I'm saying like enough people at a test screening would not go away from a movie that's well made and well scripted and well acted. Would not be like, oh, that was a terrible thing and blah 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 blah. Like they wouldn't. They might say it wasn't my cup of tea, but it was still well made. Or something of that nature. I don't know how most of their test screening, ironically, is in-house for the most part. So it's kind of like your own people hate it. You didn't think about this, but whatever.
On that note, they also released a longer statement. But do I really need to go over this? Why providing continued support do not work for all games? Oh, we're back to the classics. Okay, so they don't even understand what we're asking for. You know what? I'm going to let them figure it out. I played that song enough already. If I have to explain that a 500th time, I want it to at least be to someone who's not being paid to undermine us. Now, they're going to be lobbying politicians with this, I'm assuming, but we can try and do our part too. If you're super motivated on this and are part of the EU, you can contact a member of European Parliament and tell them about the initiative. I've been told
there's a suspicious amount of women in this group. These are a lot younger people than I was expecting, ironically.
But they're leftists.
I mean, they're European, so yeah, by definition, they have to be.
You should target ones in the Internal Market and Consumer Protection Committee.
There's the Left France. She definitely fits the bill.
Generally speaking, the communists who are taking over places, they're not older people or very younger people. They're people who are in their 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's a link in the description below. Just pick one for your country, and I'm just relaying this next part. I have no idea myself, but I've been
There's a lot of women here. Holy cow.
told you
I thought it was the patriarchy's fault. What the heck? It clearly is not.
should maybe avoid PFE and ESN, as they're not known for doing things, is how
They're lazy scumbags who make a career of doing nothing and getting paid for it, yes.
it was explained to me. And the last bit of advice is a lot of email to them gets buried.
I love PPE because it's a medical term.
So if you want something that stands out, this title was suggested to me. 1 million plus sign European Citizens Initiative. Stop destroying video games. Help us protect gamers' consumer rights. And that's all I have on Video Games Europe lobbying against us.
You have to use destroying because killing's too violent.
For now, I guess. A quick update to the last video. I didn't mean to scare the hell out of everyone signing. If you made an honest mistake filling out the initiative, it won't count, but don't worry. I don't think you'll be in any trouble with the law. Just don't spoof fake signatures. That's the part that's a big deal.
In reference to that, since you may not have watched the last video, he was talking about how there are other initiatives that had like 250,000, which you mentioned at the beginning of the video, where they become invalid. And if they become invalid, if they're seen as fake, they take their quote unquote elections very seriously, unlike the United States. And basically, they'll come after you if you're faking stuff. Now, if you incorrectly input something, they won't come after you, per se. Personally, I think if you put something incorrect in, they should send it back to you and have you clarify, clarify or put the correct information in if you may have misclicked something, because it happens. Like, when you have millions of people trying to sign a document, you're bound to have some mistakes. So,
Well,
it would make sense for grace to be extended to people.
is this this thing he's just this doc the Save Gaming Infinity whatever
Say
it-
who?
is it only allowing Europeans to sign it?
Oh, the Stop Killing Games. This particular initiative is a European Union initiative, and then they also have a United Kingdom initiative.
Well, yeah, because the UK is not in the EU.
Yeah, he has no hope. He doesn't have much hope for the UK, but the UK might pull a fast one. We don't know.
Well, Form UK, it looks like they're gonna at the very least.
I'm gonna change his face real quick because he looks really sad.
Also, don't.
There we go. That's better.
Reform UK looks like they're going to, if not win a majority, be the largest by far plurality party. So
Who?
he might be some. Oh, they're like your UK's MAGA movement.
Oh, well, if they pull that off, maybe they can change some stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm not seeing. I'm gonna assume they're gonna pull the France thing where they're like, oh, we're gonna make you ineligible because X, Y, and Z, and then they just disappear off the rolls. But yeah, I hate politics so much. But anyway, I think he's pretty much done. Let me finish.
Sign if you're not voting age.
Yeah, you gotta be voting age and from the actual area, so in the EU or in the UK if you're doing the UK version. And then basically be honest and like answer correctly, and your vote will count. If you have questions, you might want to ask somebody. I don't know who it might be, but he apparently gave you the list, so you can go find that list and then talk to them and say, hey, if I wanted to make this correctly or whatever, blah. I don't know how Europe does things because they've been doing things wrong for what seems like centuries. But anyway.
I've said this before, but it's been a while. There's always 50 things to cover. Finally, if you have made a mistake, you might be able to get it corrected. Get in touch with the official spokesperson, Daniel. His info is on the initiative page.
There you go. That's basically all that is that. I think that if done right, and if the EU behaves properly and does this right, this will be a massive win for gamers and massive boon for gamers. If we went to just them, specifically like in the States or something, if we just went and said, hey, we want any software that is no longer supported by any developer to become public domain and to become abandonware.
Well, see, that's what
that
I think the thing should be like.
I think that would be fine. But the problem is that it's not enforced. And even things like, I'm trying to remember who I was watching, but they were talking about, like, if something's in the terms of service and it specifically states something that is counter to your actual citizen rights, it's null and void. So if they say, oh, we can do this thing to you, but they actually legally can't. Because, like, for example, in a terms of service, like if you play World of Warcraft and Blizzard sends out a thing in the terms of service update saying, you know, you blah, 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 you accept the terms of service or whatever. And everybody accepts the terms of service because it's way too long and a bunch of mumbo jumbo they don't care about. And they're like, aha, well, the terms of service says you are now our slaves. Well, you can't do that. Like, terms of service does not, like, that won't become legally binding because they cannot enslave you via a contract, right?
Well, in the U.S. at least.
Well, at least in the, well, yeah. I mean, whatever the terms of service. The terms of service is not binding for things that you have legal freedoms for. It only would apply to things that you don't have legal freedoms for. But I also don't want the gaming industry to get the idea that they can just license rent things out to everybody. And then that way they never have to take responsibility or ownership of anything because there's like, well, it's our game. They're not actually purchasing our game, so therefore we don't have to do this end of life. Because I feel like that if this does pass, that's probably what they'll go for. It's like, oh, well, you're not purchasing the game. You're purchasing a license to play our game. It's a stupid music argument all over again where it's like, well, you're not actually purchasing this disc to listen to as much as you want. You're purchasing the ability to listen to this disc as much as you want, and which we could revoke in some shape or form.
They can't in the U.S. because in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, once you purchase a physical copy of a movie or music, you can play as much as you want.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, if, for example, when it happened when Sony had some stuff like Friends or whatever, like if you bought the Friends Complete Edition on Sony PlayStation Store or whatever to watch, and you paid like $60-$80 for it or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
And then they stopped hearing it because their licensing of that went away. Instead of you having control over your copy, they pulled your copy. So you paid $60 to them, and now it's gone. Which is why I advocate heavily to not buy digital unless you already own a physical. And if you're willing to pay double, then go for it. Knock yourself out. If it means that much to you, at least have the physical. So worst comes to worst, you're covered in that regard. But I don't buy digital unless it's not available in physical.
I won't buy digital at all.
Well, I mean, I will also buy digital on GOG because GOG is DRM free. Now, I did find out something interesting that I didn't know about, but apparently on Steam, if Steam was ever to go under, all the games in your library become legally yours. Yeah. That's freaking phenomenal. I didn't know about this. This would have been this is fantastic marketing, guys. Come on.
Yeah, somebody was telling me about, like, if Steam decides they're going to shut down, you'll have 3 months to get every copy of the game installed on your machine or whatever.
I mean, that'd be very difficult for me. I have thousands of games. But I would have to do some hardcore hard drive buyings. But even if that was the case, they didn't make some like cloud system that is affordable that I can set my own cloud system up and then have everything backed up on another backup that doesn't go down or whatever, because it gets really annoying. But I believe it's the same for GOG, but GOG is just DRM free, period.
Do you have $1,000 to spare?
Do I look like I have money? Look where all of it's gone.
Well, if you want a home NAS, okay, you can get a Synology box and for let's say 12 terabyte hard drives for less than $1,000 now.
Yeah, I need that to be like $50.
I'm just saying.
And also the other problem is, it's like I'd take those games personally and burn them on discs. That to me would be the best way to do it, because if the hard drive fails, I can pull the disc out, re-upload it, and put it on another hard drive.
Well, no, you have a RAID, so if one just fails, you buy a new one. I mean, my Synology with the 8 terabyte.
I'm not familiar enough with the RAIDs to know how that works. I stopped in the tech industry for a while.
One disc is redundant, so if you have a 4-disc RAID, if one just fails, you can replace it without losing any data. Okay, that's RAID 5.
I'll take it.
That's RAID 5. RAID 6 will be 2 discs, right? Anyway,
I don't care how many it is. I just want it to work.
I have a Synology I bought back in 2014 or Well, and before that, I actually ran a heavy duty server I built for it, but it made too much fucking noise. I couldn't sleep. So I bought the Synology
You got
box.
your own noisemaker.
I think I paid back then like 800, but I think now it'll be this equivalent will be like 500. So let's say it'll be $500. I had 4 8 terabyte disks in it, and they were used hard drives, like used commercial hard drives are a good person thing. And
You knew the source, yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, you they come refurbished with a renewed warranty, so as long as you get that. And in any case, since you're not doing it right now, I don't have to go into all the details.
Well, send me information later, because if like Black Friday comes around and those things come up as like reasonable, I might pick them up. But that's basically what I've been looking for, is my own hosting server.
One of those discs in the 10 years failed. One, and these were all.
Yeah, and then you take that one out and put a new one in, which is much more affordable than replacing the entire thing every single time.
The Synology, the only thing that failed on Synology was the external power adapter, which I just swapped out. One has a sling on it, so
a backup of a backup of a backup.
Yeah, and that's now you can that's your home NAS. RAID is not backup technically. It's but I'm cautious about, so backup enough for me. The extra disk. If I could afford it, I have another one that will be my actual backup.
I mean, the more backups, the better, but it also has to be affordable. So that would be a cool instance. But yeah, if there was like kind of like how I've been arguing that Steam needs to come up with their own Steam PC, and they need to make their Steam OS the main function of that PC, and then basically make it an affordable gaming PC that can run pretty much everything, with options, like with tiers, and then you could get the tiers that do like the really, really powerful stuff if you want to go like super over the top, but basically make equivalent of a PC to a console. So if you're buying a PS5 for $500, $600, $700, you have just a standard $500 one, you have an $800 one, and you have a $2,000 one, that kind of a thing. And if people want to buy those, they can get them. The problem, I think, would be the ultimate issue is that graphics cards fly through the actual schedule. So you'd be like, okay, 1 year this is the best graphics card, the next year that's gonna be a different one. They'd have to constantly update it, which would be annoying for everybody involved. So I don't know how they would do that. But if they make just a generic, you want to play Steam, here's your Steam, because basically the Steam Deck is that portable Switch. That's what it is. It's a portable Switch for Steam that you can put on a computer or on a monitor or on a TV or whatever the case might be, and you can play it with a separate external Bluetooth type controller or wireless controller and play that whenever and however you want to. But if you do it in a way that there's multiple tiers, and then they'll come out with one every 5-10 years, that would put Steam in the running as a console, which would boost PC gaming. But also, imagine having a console you could take with you that you could have put mods on it whenever you want to, and you can take it with you, and you can like play Skyrim with all the crazy over the top mods that make it look better than anything on PS5. Like, mind blowing. That would be freaking phenomenal. But Steam hasn't shown interest in that yet. I hope they do eventually. But I went to my local game store because they also sell PCs, and I was like, hey, dude, because I'm friends with the owner, and I was like, you need to put out something like a $600 range PC that can play most PC games. And then people can come in and they can purchase. They're like, I'm interested in PC gaming for my teenager or myself as a college student or a grown adult or an old man, whatever the case might be. You can say, hey, this one here is built perfect for mid to high, like low to upper mid range, everything. Like you can play pretty much everything with decent graphics and everything like that. It won't be top tier, but it will give you a vast majority of like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of games to choose from, compared to Switch's like, a couple tens of thousands. So that to me would be an idea, but I don't know if they'll ever do it. I've talked to him a couple times, but hopefully he will. But if Steam does it, Steam could be a true contender against Windows, because if you get Steam or Steam OS, and then you can put Brave browser on it or something, or whatever the case. Maybe they do a partnership with Brave browser and have that be the base browser because it's good. I don't know how they have to do that, or if they have to make their own version of it and then have Brave deal with the VPN aspect or whatever, the removal of data, that would do miracles for the industry. It would do amazing things. I would buy that in a heartbeat. I'd build one personally, but having a pre-made one would be phenomenal. So, anyway.
Well, that's up to Steam, though.
Steam, get your act together. Come on, man. I've only ever had one issue with Steam my entire life, and that was the Steam Deck to the Steam Deck OLED. Pissed me off. But aside from that, I've been a huge fan of Steam. But I think that being a huge fan of something is when you can honestly call out the faults of that thing, and they can either correct or continue to ignore you, and you can choose to stay the fan or to walk away from it. But blindly following somebody, I don't think is ever a good idea. So, but yes, thank you everybody for hanging out. That was more of an update and all that jazz. Thanks, Matt, for hanging out.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a rough couple months because scheduling, traveling, and everything's gonna go nuts, but we'll make it work somehow. Thoughts on videos? I think I'm just doing normal Friday video, Sunday video, which is this video, and then Tuesday streams at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Those are gaming streams, unless they evolve into something else, which maybe they will, maybe they won't. Matt, you got stuff on Wednesdays and Thursdays, correct?
This Wednesday, which will be the back Wednesday for those watching this on the weekend.
Well, every Wednesday, but yeah.
Huh?
Every Wednesday, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm giving a specific topic.
Gotcha.
And Wednesday is overbooked. We'll be talking about the insane 15 plus hours of professional wrestling streaming live events that will be on this weekend coming up.
Nice.
But,
are you doing like local streaming? Is that how you do it?
We do on YouTube.
How do you stream WWE?
No, we don't show the event. We talk about them.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you do a locals thing, because I know Geeks and Gamers will do it on locals because they're allowed to, like, I guess not allowed. They're not prohibited, I should say, from actually showing the actual event, and people come there and watch it with them, and they do commentary and stuff on it. I figured that might be fun too if you had something like that. And it's locals is the equivalent of like Patreon, but without all the extra BS that comes with it.
Locals is part of Rumble. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't know much about either of them really, because Rumble has had terrible.
They merge. Locals is like.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like Rumble has a terrible layout for uploading videos and stuff. And then I've never touched locals, but I thought if I ever did something, I would do that so that way I can watch stuff and comment on things as I watch them with people. And I figured that'd be fun, but that's only if people actually care about it to do it. So we'll see.
So that's Wednesday's overbooked this week. Then this week, Thursday, we'll be talking about everything Superman. So
you're not talking about Superman's James Gunn?
Well, the thing is, not everyone will have the opportunity to see this movie before Thursday. I think three of us will be able to see it before we have the show. Maybe if it drops.
I don't really care about it, honestly.
I'll give you my preliminary thoughts. There's three sections of opinion I have on it. There's like 1/3 of this I've heard about the movie that give me hope. Like I like the fact that Crypto is in it, even though he doesn't look like Crypto. Yeah. That's a dog, by the way. I don't know. I like the look of Superman, the costume, and all that. And
it doesn't fit snug enough, honestly.
It's not supposed to be snug.
I mean, every time in the comics, he's always pretty snug.
No, that's not actually true. But
everything I can remember in comics, he's always had it moderately snug. I'm not talking like muscle ripped level necessarily speaking, but
costume was supposed to look like. This is from the creators themselves. It's supposed to look like something a little kid will put together. Well, remember your little kid finished they get a blanket for a cape, and they get these like they use their weird pajamas.
I'm not expecting Superman to be like a fashionista designer. I do expect him to be like, this is comfortable for me to wear, but if it's comfortable to wear and you're like flying around places, I feel like things with looseness would cause drag and cause annoyances.
He has an aura that he has a force field around his body
that force field can't fill out a suit.
I
don't know. It looks like a kid that put on his dad's pants. And
why don't do Superman as a topic on our next show? We could do it. But let me just finish what I'm saying so we could level up.
Sure.
So 1/3 of this I've heard about the film I kind of like. 1/3 about I've heard about the film with Some of the gunism stuff and wokeism stuff that's going to be in there. I hate. And
I
then
heard the humor's pretty bad.
Huh?
I heard the humor's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's all the stuff like
it's trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy kind of thing.
Well, like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was great.
Yeah.
2 was okay. 3 was horrible. That's
well, yeah, but it's Guardians of the Galaxy humor that fits in a Guardians of the Galaxy universe that doesn't fit in necessarily every other universe.
Well, if we like the humor in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, it could be okay. He just overdid it as a anyway. So, and then there's that 1/3 of the stuff that I heard about the film that makes me kind of meh about it. Like they're doing this. So Superman should have a combination of 2 things to make him in a movie or a TV show, right? There should on one hand should be the epic aspect, and the other hand should be the human aspect, right? And I'm gathering that.
You mean the super with the human?
Well, the character of Clark Kent, the humbleness, the fact that he's a god, but effectively, but he's not a god. He wants to be one of us. He wants to help us.
He's a god that was raised right.
He doesn't want to rule over humanity. He wants to guide them. You know.
He also wants to protect them, but yes.
Yeah, well, that's part of guiding. You know.
I mean, I would argue there's kind of a similar storyline arc between Superman and Goku. Like they're not from Earth. They both end up at Earth, and they both kind of have like good natures, and they
Toriyama has his influences from other media.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, if you look at them side by side, while one could argue Superman is potentially faster or more powerful or whatever the case might be, where Goku is a different story, so he's like, I can keep going up and I don't have a limit.
That's a whole versions thing. Like,
sure, and again, I know that the originals was a little bit different than how he is now and all that jazz, but I'm just saying, like, it's interesting to see how these 2 stories pop out, and you have these 2 good guys who were raised better than their original, like in Goku's case, the evil Saiyan race kind of a thing, as opposed to Clark Kent's, doomed race. And then they end up somewhere, and apparently there's like an issue with the landing when he comes to Earth, and that's what like knocks him in the head, which causes him to not be evil like the rest of the Saiyan race, and that's basically what kept him to be a good person. And then he causes basically a generation of Saiyans, or multiple generations of Saiyans, to come into existence without that evil aspect, which is really cool. So,
well, to finish my thought, and that 1/3 of it that's kind of meh, that makes me feel they could have done better with it. So I don't know what I mean. I have a feeling I'm going to wind up saying, this film was okay, and that's you know what I mean when I ultimately see it, and that's what I show. So our show this Thursday will mention Superman, the Superman movie, but we'll talk about Superman in general. So I mean, if I could sit at my desk for more than 2 hours at a time, I'll actually do a PowerPoint for it because I love Superman. But
I mean, you could always do the well, I don't know if it works with PowerPoints, but you could always do the dragon voice thing.
Well, I would set up when I did PowerPoint, I mean, pull stills and stuff from all the Superman TV shows. I have every Superman, like everything, even the stuff I don't like, some of the recent woke animated movies. I have like every Superman TV show or cartoon going back to the beginnings now. I have Kirk Allen was the first Superman in the old serials, Superman and the Mole Man. People to watch that stuff was great,
I remember growing up with those as a kid. It was fun.
Yeah.
I now can't do anything with it. Like I'm losing interest in superheroes.
Not enough people have watched Superman and Lois, which was a great TV show.
Yeah.
Arguably the best. I mean, I would say it's the best Superman TV show ever at this point.
I mean, probably has not much competition to work with.
No, it does. That's a tremendous amount. Again, it's Kirk Allen, the serials. Then it was George Reeves with the Superman, the Adventure of Superman TV show, right? Then you go to Lois and Clark, which was pretty good, at least the first season or 2. Then there was a kind of weird Superboy TV show around the same time. By the people who did the movie, by the way, the Southland did the movie.
You clearly are wrong because the best Superman rendition is Supergirl.
Well, I enjoyed the Supergirl movie from the 80s. Okay,
I'm talking the one that came out in CW, but yes.
you know, well, there's Smallville, which had Supergirl on it. Well, the CW Supergirl would start on CBS. The end of the first season and most of the second season are really, really good. The actress who plays Supergirl is really good in the role. And what happened to that show is Greg Bush, whatever, the guy who ran all the CW shows, decided to try to make them all woke, right? And the he had co-producers on every show, right? And on Arrow, which is the headline of that show, Stephen Amell, the guy who played Arrow, was one of the executives. He refused to let the show go woke while he was still involved with it. So the first five seasons,
good on him.
Yeah, the first 5 seasons are great. I mean, I say watch the first 5 seasons of Arrow, and you can enjoy yourself. Supergirl started a little woke to begin with, so there wasn't a lot of resistance. But he went by the third season, everyone became bisexual and all blah blah blah.
Because that's how reality is.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And what even worse, it became soap opera-y. Like you saw some big events like in battles and whatever, but it became very soap opera-y. The Flash.
I would expect nothing less from these people.
The first 3 or 4 seasons of the Flash were pretty good, and probably there's an episode of the Flash called Flash Time, I think, if I remember correctly.
Flashpoint.
No, it's Flash Time. Basically, in Central City, they said a nuclear bomb is set off, and the entire episode takes place in less than 1/10 of a second. But because the speeches are so fast, that 1/10 of a second is like days to them.
I have issues with Superman movies and stuff based upon how he's presented and how they actually portray him. But I'll tell you that at a different time.
Yeah,
offline.
Just give me the rundown, Superman. I'm a big fan of all of it. The cartoons, the Fleischer cartoon from the 30s was awesome. They remastered them a couple years ago. So you never watched them, by the way. I had the remastered versions of them on my thing.
I'll check it. I think I remember asking you about one of them that I grew up on because my dad has the VHS of it with like the black and white Superman.
Well, they were in color, but you might have seen it.
This particular one was a black and white, and then they had like a color cartoon attached to it. It was like a VHS that had both of them on.
Well, like I said, the Fleischer cartoons were hand-drawn in color, right? Yeah. But there was only black and white when they originally broadcast. So they were in black and white, and then eventually, and the first releases were in black and white. Then they remastered them so you can get the original color.
Yeah. I just remember them in black and white, and it was always funny. But anything else besides that on Thursday?
That's it.
Okay. For everybody else, flies. If you're interested in things like wrestling movie reviews and other basic, just generic, I don't mean to demean you, Matt, but generic takes as in like talk about everything kind of a thing. Or maybe generic's the wrong word. I don't know what the word is at the moment, but if you like just hearing people's thoughts about stuff, check out Matt's channel, Unbearable Matt 73 on YouTube's.
Just Unbearable 73.
Unbearable 73. Okay, maybe I've been saying it wrong this whole time. I leave the link down in the description so you can't go wrong with it. But I have Unbearable Matt built into my head now for some reason. You're so unbearable, Matt. But no, check out his channel for that. And if you're interested in anime and reviews and topical type stuff at the stream every Saturday night or Friday, Saturday night. Check out Crimson Law. He's also down in the description as well. And then give them some support. You guys can support me by supporting them. So, hey.
And you can support Sage by thinking about Sage in Europe because he isn't doing anything.
You can support Sage by contacting your nearest EU representative and telling him to stop killing gays. Just kidding. Yeah. But no, like you can support Sage by just being cool and just supporting whoever you think you need to support. So that's the way. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything, good sir. So I think we'll just sign off until the next one. So thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you the next time. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.